All right, so let's look at the last example for this lesson. We're going to talk about half-life, and this is going to fit in nicely to exponential decay, is what's happening here. Half-life is defined as the amount of time that it takes for half of a substance to decay. So half-life is a number given to us that helps us to understand the units in which the rate is being defined. That's what's really happening. Let me repeat that. Half-life helps us understand the units for which the rate is given. So as an example here, we have this isotope that has a half-life of 110 years. How much of a 19-gram sample is left after 150 years? So this is going to be an exponential decay situation. So let me write out the formula. Same formula of exponential decay as we've used before. So we've got the C, we've got the R, we've got the X. Now in this example, we started with a 19-gram sample. So that's the C is 19 grams. Now the half-life was given to us as 110 years. What that tells us is every 110 years, we're going to end up with half of what we started with. So after 110 years, we're going to be down to 9.5 grams. Another 110 years later, we'll end up with half of that. So the rate, if we're talking about half, is we're going to decay at a rate of 50%. But how often are we doing that? Per 110 years. So this is where we need to match up the units. The rate is 50%, but it's every 110 years. So with X being the number of 110 year periods, how many 110 year periods have passed if 150 years have passed? Well, that would be to take the number of years that have passed and divide by 110. Divide by how many of those periods have come about. Once we identify that that's what's going on in this problem, it becomes as simple as the rest. We plug in the C value, we plug in our rate of 0.5, and our exponent of 150 over 110. So now we can type this in just directly as we see it. 1 minus 0.5, all raised to the power of 150 over 110. We end up with about 7.4 grams remaining. Now this should make sense that we knew after 110 years we'd have 9.5 grams left, and we had 40 more years pass, so some more decayed. Now just to point out, if we were using a non-math printy calculator, we would need to be careful with parentheses. Then we'd have 19 times 1 minus 0.5. We would need parentheses in the exponent to say this 150 over 110 is all in the exponent together. And that's how we'd achieve the correct answer without the nice math print.